and welcome to Sip Sip Hooray, the podcast for people who like wine, but not all the fussiness and snobbery that's sometimes associated with wine. When you think of wine country, you probably think of lush vineyards and world-class wineries, a peaceful, idyllic place where the only drama you might find is perhaps in the dramatic vistas. But a hot new series on Oprah Winfrey's own network turns a winery into a place of high drama. And at the center of it all is the African-American family who own King Wines. The Kings of Napa has everything from extortion plots to infidelity, family power plays, and plenty of romance. It's a binge-worthy take on wine country living, and we're excited to be joined by the show's creator today, Janine Sherman Barrois. We are, of course, the two Marys who like to eat, drink, and be merry. I'm Mary Babbitt.
And I'm Mary Orlin. And as the show itself says, what's juicier, the grapes or the King family secrets? Well, so along the way, they spill all the tea, but we're not going to spill it for all the tea for you today, because we want you to follow along the series. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, you are already enthralled with the series. If not, hopefully you're recording it so you can binge watch it later. But what you're going to see is a show that is about a powerful Black family running the amazing winery, but all the scandals, all the salacious secrets, all the family drama comes out. So it's something that will keep you on the edge of your seat, and just like a fine wine, will make you want it to come back for another taste. So welcome, Janine.
Oh, thank you guys. I'm excited to be here.
Well, as I said, we are loving the show, and I would love to just kick us off by having you explain how you got the idea for this, because as Mary Orlin said, you are the creator, you are the show runner, writer, producer. I mean, you wear a lot of hats on this one. So where did this idea come from?
You know what? I have always wanted to do a show about, an influential African-American family. And I think it was probably about 8 years ago. It could be 10 years ago at this point. I went with some friends I was on my way to Santa Barbara, to Santa Ynez, to hang out with some friends and go to a vineyard. And when I was getting dressed in the morning, we were having like a van limo thing pick us up so that we could drink and eat and not drive,
Smart.
And yeah, it was, about 12 people. And I was telling my mom I had to get off the phone. My mother was in Virginia at the time. And I said, I'm going to this place. We're going to eat at this place called Molly's, and we're going to Rideau Vineyard. And she said, oh, Lisa's mom, her cousin owns this vineyard. And I said, no, it's not Black owned. She goes, yeah, it's Black owned. And I said, it's Rideau. It's in Santa Barbara. I promise you, it's not a Black owned vineyard. And she said, and she literally laughed at me and said, why do you think there's not Black owned vineyards? And I said, I don't know. I never thought about it because I had never seen it, Mm-hmm. And so she said, this is her family. This is Iris Rideau, owns this vineyard. And when we went there, Iris actually was not in town. And I didn't get a chance to meet her, but I sat on this, picnic blanket at this vineyard, and I thought, wow, this would be an amazing, amazing background or backdrop for a show. And there had been shows that had dealt with sort of vineyards years before, like I think Brothers and Sisters, and then way, way before that, in the Falcon Crests. But I had never seen anyone, with an African-American family. And so when I was sitting there on the picnic blanket, I just started pretending like people started coming alive, and I started thinking of scenarios. And then I sort of put it in my back pocket thinking one day I'll do this. And then I started looking at other characters in my life at family reunions, people that I knew, twisted their lives. And I said, here, if I take all of these crazy characters, these amazing characters that we find in family, and I lay it on top of the vineyard, I would have something sort of unique and distinctive. And that's sort of how it began. And I, eventually got the script to Oprah to own, and we developed it for their network. I think originally it was bigger. It dealt with sort of the war between two vineyards, and we made it just a little smaller so we could just focus on the kings themselves. And we do have a little bit, as you can see with the season with Sean and Sean, we do have a little bit of the conflict of another vineyard. But it's really about this family and about the dynamics that happen as they all try to figure out and reconcile with, the patriarch leaving.
Sure.
And how all of the kids sort of have to, have a power play, and how you deal with grief, how you deal with loss. And wine.
And wine. Yeah. And, wine is certainly a character, but it's not the main focus. And, what I really appreciated about it was how many powerful women you profile in the series. And I was wondering, were there specific people, and maybe in the wine industry, who you have met along the way that helped shape these characters?
What's interesting, I read a lot about different people in the wine business. Just for, like legal reasons, I didn't write about anybody specifically. You know what I mean?
Sure.
As a writer, what you do is you try to find a world, and then you try to find characters that you create in your own mind to fit the world. And that way you're not doing anyone's life story. The irony of Iris and I is we've been playing phone tag and met each other through, Instagram, but we have not physically met or spoken yet. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And that is because I was not trying to do her life story, nor any of the wine consultants. We have a guy, LaQuintus, who's part of Tilford Wines in Atlanta. It's a father and son vineyard. They consulted and sort of helped give us the wine jargon he did on the piece, so that it sounded accurate. But I never got into the dynamics of him and his father. He told me some things about him and his father. The vineyard that we shot at in, we clearly, the cost is very expensive to shoot in California.
Yeah.
So for a show like this, where all of the money needs to be spent on the screen, most productions are not here, unfortunately. So we ended up doubling Napa as Niagara Falls outside of Toronto.
Okay.
And that allowed us to have like a bigger tax break and put more money on the screen. But there I had a lot of wine consultants too. And again, I didn't really look at their personal stories. The personal stories are more derived from family and people I know, or things that I've heard along the way as a writer of, someone saying, my dad had an affair with my mom's sister, or, you know what I mean? Or something like that, you know what I mean? And you kind of pick up things along the way, and you learn these dynamics, and you think, oh, this would add for juiciness.
I can use that somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do think I wanted, look, I love writing about women, and I love writing about strong women. And it was important to me, when you look at Vanessa, when you look at August, and you look at, Bridget and Melanie and Auntie Bet, that they were all strong, dynamic women who were not necessarily driven by men or any form of sexual partnership.
So true.
It's a great cast. And I'd love to talk more about the cast, but before we go too much farther, I do want to get back to the notion that what first struck you in Santa Barbara County, when, the idea that a Black-owned winery was not something that you really thought could actually exist in Santa Barbara County. And in fact, 1% of the wineries in the U.S. are estimated to be owned by African Americans. So it is a really underrepresented group in the wine world. And so can you talk a little bit more about why that was important to you, and how you feel that showing this strong king family as successful vintners, and why was that important to you? And what are you showing?
Yeah, well, listen, I think that I think that post civil rights, and we're Black people were kept out of so many industries. So we are in a constant game of catch up. We're in a constantly trying to catch up and even a playing field that for $1,400,000,000 reasons, years why we're behind. And so I think some of the reasons why you don't see us in certain industries is because we weren't allowed in those industries, and because those weren't options. So it's not that someone said, oh, Black people cannot be, winemakers, or they can't own vineyards. It's just that we were trying to get land and jobs and education and a free, and a fair education. And so I think the way you kind of get the numbers higher than 1% is if you literally show images of jobs and fields that haven't been depicted before on television, so that young kids, as they're growing up, if you want to make a wine, if you're in college and this is what you want to do, you actually see it as an option. Mm-hmm. And you also can see that if you are someone else and you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, or you're an architect, whatever it is, you're in in the tech field. Not only is an option to invest money, you can invest in stocks, you can invest in art, you can invest in property, you can invest, in commercial property, residential property. There's a million ways to have generational wealth. But some people buy vineyards. That is right. Another way that people buy businesses, they buy companies, and vineyards are one of those things. And so you see people, I was at the Obama portrait unveiling, and I was doing a private tour at the Smithsonian, and I was talking about the show, and a man turned around, and he's an African-American man. He and his wife, own a vineyard in Napa, and so he has another career, but this is something else he does as well. You look at people like the Brown Estate, you look at the Tilfords who are in Atlanta, you look at McBride sisters. There are people doing it, but I think it's very, very important to show young people that you can do it, and there is an avenue to do it. And then maybe, 20 years from now or 50 years from now, the 1% of any business where Black people do not occupy like a fair share, they'll be in it, because they would see it. And it's very interesting. I would read like some comments like, we're up in Napa and there are no Black people here. And I'm like, why are you proud of that? We're trying to even it all out. And there actually are more Black people now than there were 10 or 15 years ago in the wine industry. Right. And so we want to make it in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, we want the percentages of every field to be more equal.
Well, that is so true. I've been covering the wine industry for 25 years. Mm-hmm. Mary and I started doing a TV show about wine country 20 years ago. And it's true, when we started, there were not many people of color in the industry. And, in Napa Valley, you just didn't see that. It has been slowly changing. I will tell you that one comment I hear over and over is that it's important to show that there are Black people in the wine industry so that people of color can relate and say, there's someone who looks like me doing that. That's a possibility for me. Mm-hmm. What I found interesting is what you have done is not only that, but you've made it more aspirational that not only can you own a vineyard, but you can be fabulously fierce in all these great clothes and the artwork and your lifestyle, which is something that doesn't get portrayed very often until now.
Yeah, I think, listen, to do a complete documentary of the wine world and the wine industry, it is not as glamorous as the Kings. You know?
Oh no, it's not.
Well, we are aware of that, but we still love the fun.
Yeah.
We love that family
Yeah,
and what you're doing.
And I am completely aware of that. I'm aware of, like, the houses aren't as big. Like, there's a million different things, and it is a real labor of love for people. It takes over 10 years to, like, break even if you're lucky. There's so many things that are, you know, that are real in the wine industry that I jumped over in making the show. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because, like, I was really trying to make an aspirational show about the family, and the wine industry is the backdrop. And the parents, you know, were Vanessa was a journalist. She was like a local journalist on air. So she had a job at a station, and he is a surgeon. And so with those jobs, you know, you do have money, and you do have choices about what you're going to do with your money and how you're going to invest your money. So I wanted to really get us to a point where we saw, like, yes, they've created this amazing, amazing wine, but they've also educated their children at the best schools in the country. They've also, you know, support and are philanthropic in, you know, supporting art. They've traveled around the world. And when you look at their home, you can feel like, oh, they've been on safaris, they've been to France, they've eaten in Italy, they've done all of these things. And I wanted it to just kind of jump into that aspiration. And the way I tried to show the struggle was, you know, that it is hard to put out a wine. It is hard to compete. But I did want to really kind of embrace that they were selling that sort of uber cottagecore, amazing, like, lifestyle as well.
Sure. Well, I think and I've had this discussion with many people, the wine industry has done a big disservice to itself in the past. It's getting a little better, but by not reaching out to people of color and to their communities and creating wine culture that incorporates their cultures, the Black experience, the Asian experience, the Latinx experience. I think it's still not not anywhere close to where it needs to be. So shows like yours can start that conversation and elevate it.
Absolutely. It's mighty white. It has been, and it remains mostly, but it is, we both appreciate what you're doing, and representing a strong Black family is, can only help us all, right?
And I was going to just add there are, like, the New York Times did a, piece last year on all of the Black people that are kind of rising to the top of the wine industry. And there are pieces getting written and people are talking about it. And I just think the more people see things, the more people can, they can actually aspire to be in it and to be it. Because my friends that are Black in LA, we drink wine. Like, we drink wine. We travel around the world. We buy art. We all of those things. And, we go to wine country and do wine tastings. And so I think it's just great to shine a light on, it's not just a certain demographic that you'd expect.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Well, we mentioned the cast earlier, and you have put together a terrific cast on this show. The strong women and the power struggles amongst the family are highlighted because you have such terrific people playing these characters. And one of the things I think is really interesting is you have Dana King, who he is a little person who's a member of the family. He's the older brother, Dana King.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what an interesting choice. And, you talk about underrepresented populations, including a little person on your show, just I think adds to the depth and the creativity of your show. And I just loved it. So I was curious about that decision and how you got there.
There's an editor, I'm just blanking on his name. His name is Mark, but I'm blanking on his last name. He's at GQ, and I was in Miami at a film festival, ABFF Film Festival, and I saw a screening. I was doing press for, I think, Claws, and I screened a short myself. And after my short, there was this short called Trapeze, and it was from this editor who did it, and Rance Nick starred in it. And when he came on the screen, I was just captivated. I said, oh my gosh, this young man is brilliant. He's genius, and he's just popping off the screen. Mm-hmm. And so when the screening was done, my husband and we were expecting to go out to eat. And I said, I want to go upstairs and I want to rewrite this part for Rance Nix. And I want him to be Dana, because I felt that he was just so, so powerful and so formidable. I thought him being in this world would be like very, very special. And it's interesting because I know he's a little person, but he's just such a big presence. I forget, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I really forget. And he's so formidable and so powerful. It is truly, truly a blessing to have him on the show, and I'm grateful. But it came out of me actually seeing him and seeing him come on screen in a theater, and I thought, he's a star.
He is. He is a fantastic actor.
His presence is incredible. It just takes up the room when he walks in.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, when I saw him, I then went on Instagram and I started following him and looking at pictures. And I loved how he was dressed. He was very impeccable. I loved his suits, his ties. I loved his casual wear. He was very like, here's what I wear when I ski. Here's what I wear when I'm like at drinks with friends. Here's my Sunday best. Here's his, Burberry kind of like, he just was so on point with his style. Yeah. that was sort of infused in the character, because I wanted him to feel feel like he feels, and more elevated.
Well, he's impeccably dressed, but the entire cast is, so we've got to talk about the fashion. I mean, right. I love watching shows that have great clothing, great wardrobes. So tell us, because I was reading that I think you have a woman of color who's your costume designer, and you also are showcasing some known and also some up and coming Black designers.
Yeah, I winded up hiring Michelle Light. She is a Black Canadian. She is based in Toronto. She's somebody I wanted to work with since I did Self-Made with, and she wasn't available. So this was a great, great opportunity for us to join forces. She immediately, read the script and sort of broke down each character, and she knew that everybody was going to have a vibrant, distinct sort of look. And when we first look at our number one, Ebony, who is just, breathtaking and, just so fierce. She had come off of FBI, the Dick Wolf show, mm-hmm. and we wanted her to be a fashionista. We wanted her to be very, whimsical, kind of give us that Carrie Bradshaw feeling of like the original Sex and the City. Like, she'd wear tulle, she'd wear, leather pants, she'd wear a t-shirt, and you'd be like, where's your skirt? But that would be her dress,
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so we started there, and we built her as the center, since she is the star. And we made sure that she in every scene had some fierce designer. We had Fen Noel, I think that's how you pronounce it. She's an African-American designer in New York. We had a lot of Pure Moss. We had Balmain, and we had, everyone from. We had a lot of emerging Black designers, and then we had people like Zimmerman, which has that kind of Victorian. I think they're Australian pictures, that Victorian feel, which feels very much so like you would be in a vineyard with those dresses. And
I have to say that what they wear in the vineyards, like, okay, that's not what you would normally see, but
well, props to Ebony Noel for she can walk a vineyard row, and I have walked my share being filmed, and she can walk a vineyard row in heels and not wobble. And she, I mean, she looks fantastic. But man, I could barely, even in boots, I was always like, oops, just hit a pothole. Oops, like I was.
It's so funny. It's so funny. So in most of the time, we tried to have them in some sort of sneaker or like a slide, but when they were on the vineyard. But this is what's so crazy. When she's in that last week, she was in a Balmain dress and she's walking in heels. I think that's what it is. Yeah. And she, I think we forgot her shoes. Her shoes were literally like to send someone back to base camp and come back would have been 20 minutes and we would have lost light. So I think she just worked it and we had her walk in those heels and she could do it.
She really could. She looked great. She looked steady as a rock.
Hats off to her. She can strut her stuff in a vineyard.
But it truly was a kind of like, wait a second, she's going to walk down the rows with that on. And I think there's one other time we have an incident like that, but she plays it off and you just go, this is aspirational because listen, it's hard in sneakers.
It is. It really is.
We know.
Hey, I wanted to know, Janine, what's it like working with Oprah Winfrey? And is she involved in the show? You mentioned that you guys, did she work with you? You were going to have two families or a competing winery or something. So how closely are you guys working together, or is, how often do you guys get to interact?
She was very involved. As I developed the script, she has an amazing team, as you would expect. And they helped give notes and, I developed the script with them and rework some things. And it was more kind of making it, more on budget. Sometimes you have to strip away things just to make it more doable. But when we started shooting, I did, she was involved in my initial pitches to her, and that is a thing unto itself. You think, oh my gosh, what are you going to do when you finally have this moment where you're pitching to Oprah Winfrey? And it's definitely scary.
Yeah. How do you keep from fainting?
Exactly. But she has this, the reason why she's Oprah is she has a way of calming you quickly. And so she was involved. She watched dailies and she gave notes. She gave feedback. She gave feedback on script things, performance things, looks, the look of the home. I think she wanted it to feel authentic. And, she is a person who's been in an amazing, not only does she most likely have an amazing, impeccable environment. All I've seen is the offices, which are impeccable, but she's been around the world, so she knows how people live. And so I think it was important for her, for this to feel big and aspirational, but also to feel lived in and warm in places. And you wanted the family to feel like, although they might own a vineyard, they still have Sunday dinner and, eat soul food.
Yeah.
Right.
And you wanted to feel that way in their house, that yes, we could have done a very kind of posh living room, dining room where you didn't feel like they would be sitting and talking, but it was intentional to make it feel lived in. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you about two characters that really intrigue me. One is Rose, and for everybody who's listening, you may know that she is married to Dana King. And what blew me away was the scene where Rose votes against Dana. So talk about her character and, how that tension.
I think, Rose is sort of this woman who married into the family. She's absolutely striking. She's from London, and she has always been ride or die for her husband. And there is just an assumption about her and her character that she will always side and support Dana.
Right.
Always like that. People don't even ask her opinion anymore because they know what it is. It's whatever whatever Dana thinks.
Yeah.
And I think we know a lot of people in our lives that are like that, and they're struggling to sort of find their voice. And I think Rose gets this relationship, this friendship with Bridget, and in this intimate moment, Bridget encourages her to find her voice, and that she can't be a wallpaper. She cannot be a wallflower. She has to be who she's meant to be. Mm-hmm. And we learned that, she used to be a writer, and she was writing this book. It got, pivoted, she pivoted to other things when she met Dana. We learned later, that she was spraying, perfume at the Calvin Klein counter.
Right.
Yeah. And we understand who that woman is.
Yes.
You tried to do different things, then you probably needed a job. You got a job in retail, all of these things that are, great ways to make a living, etc. And when she decides to vote against Dana, I really wanted it to be a scene where she found her voice. And in this moment of tension, the family was all looking at each other and all expecting her to side with Dana. And this way Dana would win. It would be his stepping stone. I think I also wanted to platform them initially as more sort of Lady Macbeth and Macbeth. They had this team together to do something, and she didn't play by the rules.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see that coming, and it was a delight.
Yeah, and he went in on her in a very kind of bold, vicious way.
Yes.
and there will be more fallout from that.
Oh, okay.
I think Rose is one of those people that you meet in life. A lot of people show you their hand from the jump. You kind of know what hand they're playing, their cards. But I think Rose is more deliberate. She's more observant, and she's going to slowly play her hand.
She's playing the long game.
She's totally playing the long game. Yeah. This was just card one. This was just card one.
Oh, that's a great tease. The other character I'm intrigued by is Christian for two reasons. First, that he's bipolar, and you don't often see characters who are openly talking about being bipolar in a role. And the second reason is, and I'm wondering, because this rang so true for me, that because Bridget is banned from the vineyard and Bridget was managing the vineyards, now Christian has to step into this role, which he has no clue about.
Right.
And the vineyard workers totally do not accept him. And that would be so true. That really is okay, that's spot on. That would happen. And, how did you come to that?
Well, in terms of him having bipolar, I really wanted to deal with mental health, and especially as it relates to African-American men. I think so often they are not treated, they're not diagnosed, and, sometimes even criminalized for mental issues when the issue is actually mental. You know what I mean? And
right.
And so I think it's very important for us to talk about mental health. I also thought it was important for the first season to show somebody who was managing his mental health. He was managing his bipolar, and not necessarily show him not managing, not having therapy, or not taking medication, whatever. I wanted you to hear him say, this is what I'm dealing with. His mother wanted, kind of holding hands with him to say, I'm here for you. I'm walking with you. But I don't want you to get too stressed. She's always checking in on him because she wants to make sure he's doing well.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think, unless you see Black men in their full humanity, you will not believe it, because it's just, sometimes it's just not on television all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think this is part of his humanity as a character. That makes him more human as well, is that he is the youngest. He is, of the zeitgeist and the culture. He's into like the new drip. He wants to have Versace on.
Right.
He is, and he's allowed to be a 20-something-year-old kid. And that's part of his growth. But he has to figure out, is he going to have a place in this company? And so I think we're meeting him at that moment, and he doesn't know how to get people to like him. And the way he's learned to get people to like them is, I'm going to buy them. While they're working, I'm going to bring my bourbon out and chicken and some like biscuits, and everyone's going to have a little party before they work. And he's not even thinking like, the workers can't drink and work machinery in a vineyard.
Right.
Exactly. It'd be a little dangerous.
It's a little dangerous, and it's a little libel.
Yeah. But it shows he has no clue. But then, he comes to a point, I think he's starting to realize he's got to change something to be accepted.
He does. And I think he's got to change it to be accepted. And he's got to, I think by the end of the last episode, he kind of you see him take his shirt off, and he just has the t-shirt on, and he's starting to strip away the designer gigs,
right?
So that he can fit in and actually look like he's trying to work.
Well, I love the line that one of the vineyard workers said, without all your bling, how do I recognize you?
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, there are so many great story arcs in this series, and the characters and the way you're developing each of them to give you so many dimensions and directions to go with them. So it certainly, it's a show that's got a lot going on, and I love that. We were talking earlier about how some of this is aspirational, and about how when people see representations on screen, they can visualize themselves doing something like that. So I thought it might be interesting if you told us how you got your start. You've worked on so many shows and films, and you've got a really long list of credits, from producer to writer to showrunner. On many different series, from Criminal Minds, Claws, Third Watch, ER, and then the Self-Made, the story of Madame
C.J. Walker.
Yes, Madame C.J. Walker. Fantastic. And so you've got a lot of credits under your belt. So how did you get started in all of this?
I moved out here, and I wanted to write. I knew I wanted to write. I graduated from Howard University. I came out. I started being an assistant. I worked for some big managers, and I read a lot of scripts. I eventually got into the Warner Brothers writing program, and that I used a sample of a pre-existing show, which we call a spec, and I winded up getting in, and I did a few comedies like the Jamie Foxx show and the PJs, another show called Lush Life. And then I knew, I liked writing humorous things, but I wanted to write about life and death too, and have those sort of stakes. So I wound up switching to drama. And I got mentored by John Wells. And at the time he had ER, West Wing, and Third Watch on. And I got on Third Watch. I was there for 5 seasons and got to write a lot. And then I went to the final 4 years of ER. And after ER, in those environments, I got to write for some amazing actors, whether that was Stanley Tucci or Forrest Whitaker. Or Sally Field. I got to hone my craft with some of the best. And then I winded up, my boss from Criminal Minds my boss from Third Watch went over to Criminal Minds. I winded up going there, and I was an executive producer for 5 years. And then I signed a deal at Warner's, and Warner's brought me back to write more character stuff. And that's where I was able to do Claws and able to do, which just ended last night.
Oh, and congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And I did Self-Made and with Octavia Spencer. And
so good.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful. And then they're the ones, Warner Brothers is the ones that helped get my script to OWN and to Oprah. And we developed this, and it's, just been a delight to do, because I think, we've been in the pandemic for a couple years now. It has been dark times at times for all of us. And I think watching an aspirational family and an aspirational show that's bright and fun and has dynamics and has the juiciness that the Kings bring, is what's kind of needed right now, because we want to watch television and escape to different worlds. And this is a world, like, there's nothing more calming and more aspirational than, having a glass of wine and walking through vines. It's just, it's a calming, aspirational feel. And I think to put this family with their clothes and their dynamism, in that environment, has just been really, really thrilling.
So true. So true. I mean, and, especially for folks living in California, wine country is so accessible.
Yes.
And it's, and I know there's been all this pent up demand to go to wineries, to go tasting, just to go sit in the vineyard and just chill and relax.
Yeah. And I think relaxing and enjoying life, is sort of the moral of the pandemic story. Like, you need to enjoy, your wine, your food, your friends, the people that you love outside, and you need to enjoy life. And I think that's what, wine country does. And I think that's what the show does. It's kind of a toast to enjoying your life.
Do you have time to enjoy your life? You sound awfully busy.
I do. I have one of my best friends is here, and she and I went swimming last night, and we had some wine by the pool.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I definitely think that we got to take time to celebrate ourselves and celebrate life and just relax.
So when you are looking for a wine to enjoy, what do you gravitate towards?
I am definitely a white wine drinker. I love Pinot Grigio. I love Chardonnays. I love anything that's light.
Yes.
Me too.
And for whatever reason, I don't gravitate as much to reds. And I will tell people this, and then they'll bring out the most expensive bottle, and I'm still like, what white wine do you have?
Yeah. No, I prefer white wines myself, and there's so many great white wines that are as complex and more aromatic. I love the aromatics. That's what drives me.
Yes.
And I find I need a lighter wine just because otherwise I don't metabolize it well. The lighter wines tend to have, I think, just less alcohol, and that's easier on my system.
I think you're completely right. But if you find a great bottle, you will salute it. I hope next season the Kings, maybe they'll put one of their wines on the shelves.
So are you confirming that there's a season 2 coming?
No, I'm not confirming. My fingers crossed.
Okay.
From my wine glass to your wine glass.
Yes.
Well, let me get my good friend Oprah on the phone.
Yeah, you call her. But I am definitely, I would definitely celebrate that option. And so, but right now I'm just cherishing, the next 4 episodes until our finale. We did 8 episodes, and so we have 4 more left, and I'm just thrilled for the audience to see where this goes.
Yes, so are we. It's like I was saying to Mary Babbitt earlier, gosh, in a way it's like I wish it was all the episodes kind of dropped at once so I could just binge it.
I have to wait.
I have to wait
a lot of people have said that to us. Yeah, I wish it was. Hopefully it will stream, when this is over. But right now, we are 8/7 Central on OWN every Tuesday. Tomorrow, the next episode drops.
Yep.
And yeah, everybody just needs to stay tuned and tell your friends and tell their friends and bring your wine.
Yes, and set your DVR, and then you can binge it.
Absolutely. You can binge it, and that helps us too. So that's cheers. That would be amazing.
Well, Janine Sherman Barrois, what a pleasure to visit with you today. Congratulations on Kings of Napa. It is such a fun show, and I'm super excited that you're building an audience full of people who are really enjoying watching this successful Black family of vintners. And anyway,
and just for telling great stories that need to be told.
Thank you.
Yes. So
that is the goal.
Listeners, if you haven't found it, you need to check this one out. It's a lot of fun.
Yes. On the OWN network, Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Central. And on the West Coast, that's 8 p.m. as well.
Well, we're going to let you go and enjoy your girlfriend. Cheers to you, Janine, and Sip Sip Hooray. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, you guys. Take care.
Thanks, Janine. Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, Mary Babbitt, what a great conversation we had with Janine Sherman Barrois. I mean, she is bringing drama to the Black wine culture.
Oh, absolutely. And you talk about a powerful woman who is using her talent and her platform to highlight not only a successful Black family, but she also is including mental health issues in the show. She has cast a little person as one of the most powerful characters on the show. She's getting a lot done in this show in such a fun way. The show is truly fun. And wine is, as we said, kind of in the background. It is not the central character, but it's really, really a lot of fun to watch.
It is. The setting is beautiful. As we mentioned, the fashion is fierce. And it's a lot of fun, but again, it's it is putting people of color in powerful aspirational situations, which is especially as in the wine industry, it's about time.
It is about time. Again, the show's on the OWN network, and it is Tuesdays. It drops on Tuesdays, and she's got, what did she say, 4 more episodes left?
4 more episodes from our taping today. Well, by the time you all hear this on Sip Sip Hooray, there may be 1 or 2 shows left, and I can't even imagine what the finale is going to be. It'll be a blockbuster.
Yeah. Well, that is going to do it for Sip Sip Hooray today. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope if you enjoyed today's show that you'll share it with your friends and tell other people about us. You can find us on all your social media platforms at Sip Sip Hooray Podcast.
And wherever you listen to our podcast, we hope you'll go in and give us a rating if you like the show. That just helps other people find us. But we really thank you for joining us, and we hope you tune in next time. And if you have missed any of our past episodes, go to our website, sipsiphoooraypodcast.com. You'll see all the other great interviews we've done with amazing wine people.
All right, Mary Orland, cheers to you, girl.
Cheers, Mary Babbitt, and Sip Sip Hooray.
Sip Sip Hooray.